Hi everybody, this is Carol Sherwood. Welcome to Stephen Avery, The Devil is in the Details. In continuing with our Phone Records Don't Lie series, I want to tell you about a phone call that is on Teresa Halbach's records on 10/31 in the middle of the day, noonish, and it's not really talked about, and I can't find any information on it. I know who it belongs to, and let's just jump right in and I'll share it with you. When you look at what the state presented, they presented in the trial a summary of her singular calls, okay? Now, the visual that you get from that summary is Teresa checking voicemails, Teresa getting a call from Auto Trader, Teresa calling a couple of her customers who she spoke with, and then boom, you get the Stephen Avery blocked calls, all right? So here's what I want you to know. The singular records in themselves, they don't show incoming calls. They show the outgoing calls. But remember something. This trial didn't take place until over a year later. It was in like February, March, right there in 2007, when this all happened at the end of October in 2005. So by the time they prepared documents and the trial exhibits, they have the phone records. They know everybody that called. And here's a little hint. If they knew Stephen used block 67 or star 67 incoming, then they knew that one and they put it on the summary report. That summary report, which is a trial exhibit, is nothing but a visual representation for you to be able to see, or for the jury to be able to see, and the people that are, watching this trial to see nothing fishy except Stephen Avery. All right? There's a whole bunch of entries missing on that summary. So, just know that. All right? Now, there's a phone call. There's more than one, but I'm doing these one at a time that are phone calls to me that kind of jumped out, that look a little bit strange, that I think, wonder why those were left off. Remember when there were people at her house on 11/3 and they were making the phone calls, they'd pull the phone records down for Mark Wiegert and Leslie Lemieux, and then Ryan, Scott, Kelly, Lisa, whoever was there, they were supposedly calling all of these recent phone calls that Teresa had on that day to see if anybody knew anything. They certainly called Speckman. We know that. All right. But there's a phone call that Teresa received at 12:29 p.m., so noon 30, basically, right there at 12:30. It's an incoming call, and it's 40 seconds, and it went to voicemail. She did not answer the call, which is quite normal in her pattern of phone call records and behavior that you see. She rarely answers phone calls, but yet turns right around within minutes and listens to her voicemail, and then you see that she does call some people back and she doesn't call others back, whatever the case may be. Okay, so this call comes in at 12:29 for 40 seconds. It is not listed on the state's calls. It is not listed on any police report. It is not included in any interviews of people that they interviewed for the case. There's nothing mentioned in it about the trial. It's on the phone records, and you can see it on the phone records, but it's not brought to anyone's attention. And what bothered me, I think, about it more than anything is I can't find any interview with this person. You would think that in an investigation of this magnitude, especially since Stephen had been in prison and then being released, and now here's a missing person, possible homicide, they would be contacting every single person on that 1031, at least on 1031, and getting statements from every person and finding out what's your business with Teresa, why were you calling, why did she call you, why did she not call you, anything and everything that you could find. But we find that there's some that they didn't do that to. And then, of course, there are the numbers that we find that there are messages that were deleted. Oh, by whom? Who knows? But that'll come later. But this call came in at 12:29 and it's 40 seconds and it went to voicemail. You can see where Teresa turned right around within 10 minutes, checked her voicemail, so she knew the person called, but she was probably already on the road, because within a very few minutes after she checked her voicemail, she's on the phone with Speckman. So the call came in from a number ending 0220. It's a local number. It comes in, and the last name on this phone call is Breckheimer, Breckheimer. Good old German name. I did research on the phone number, just like I have on the other phone numbers that I've researched, and I traced the number back to Mark and Danielle Breckheimer. All right, they had the number back then. The number was a landline. For any of us that have been looking at this case, that name probably doesn't jump out much at all. What I noticed about it is this number isn't listed anywhere and there's no interview, as I've said before. Well, let me tell you something about Breckheimer, okay? I don't know anything about Mark or Danielle Breckheimer except who they're related to, all right? Mark Breckheimer has a brother. His name is Mike Breckheimer. Mike Breckheimer has a wife named Kelly Breckheimer. Guess what Kelly's maiden name is? Drum roll. Bleddorn. Bleedorn. Not just like Scott Bleddorn, but Mike Breckheimer's wife Kelly is Kelly Bleddorn, Scott Bleddorn's sister. So you could virtually say that Mark is Scott's brother-in-law. I just like looking at things like that. So, but it's definitely his sister's brother-in-law. So, why would that call be ignored? I'm not talking about ignored by Teresa. I'm talking about ignored as an existing phone call that came in that day. And then to further the puzzle, when you go and you look at the messages, the voice messages that were retrieved and presented in a list of the voice messages, that one's missing. It's not there. Not even mentioned at all. But it's on the phone records. And it's there. Have they called Teresa before? Yes. Their number appears before 1031 on a couple of other instances, and Teresa did call back. But here's the thing. Why remove, delete, eliminate, and ignore that phone call? Is it because somebody panicked and decided, holy mackerel, that's my family, well, I don't want them to show up on there? Well, you know, I can see there might be a bit of a panic or something there, But guess what? It could have been found out back then. They could have been calling Teresa to what? Sell a car. They could have been calling Teresa to set up an appointment for photos. Who knows? It may have had absolutely nothing to do with Stephen Avery and what's happening and what took place that day with Teresa, but yet someone decided that that phone call needed to be muted. It needed to be ignored. It needed to be pushed over and not paid attention to. Well, there you have it. Phone number ending 0220 came in at 12:29 for 40 seconds, left a voicemail, and it is Scott Bleddern's sister's relatives, in-laws. So, I don't know why it got gone. I know that sounds really East Texas, doesn't it? It got gone. But here's what I know. Phone records don't lie.